Boxstar Forum, it's your boy Terry L, and I'm back at y'all with another one. Boy, we got some saucy news for y'all today. Within the last 24 hours, it has been announced an arbitration judge, United States of America, has ruled in favor of Deontay Wilder. Let me say that again because I don't think you heard me the first time. In the United States, an arbitration judge or judge of arbitration or a mediator, whatever you want to call him, in the United States has just ruled in favor of Deontay Wilder that he has to be awarded a trilogy fight between Tyson Fury. I'm going to say it again because somehow I like the way that sounds. A judge in the United States of arbitration has just ruled in favor of Deontay Wilder, Bronze Bomber Wilder. Well, he's been saying all along, Deontay Bronze Bomber Wilder has been saying since day dot, after he lost a rematch to Tyson Fury, rightfully so, he got his ass whooped in the second fight by Tyson Fury, that whatever he plans on doing next, he can't really do it because we got a clause in our contract, he has to fight the trilogy. And that's exactly what happened. The court of arbitration or the judge of arbitration or the mediator, whoever this guy is, has definitely ruled in favor of Deontay Bronze Bomber Wilder. So the proposed fight between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua has just seen a spanner in the works, a monkey wrench, a hammer about to hit somebody upside their head. It ain't going to happen unless one of three things happen. I'm not getting that in a minute. So the thing that's a bit confusing that most observers will have a problem with is that if there is a contract and a contract is supposed to be honored, but yet while that contract is supposedly honored or should be honored, then something else goes on, like another sort of negotiation goes on with someone else, somewhere else, and the contract that has been stipulated has not been honored. That means someone is in violation of that contract. To make it more clearly, in this case between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, they had the first fight, which ended in a draw. They had a rematch clause, which means they had to fight the rematch. As you know, that rematch happened just over a year ago. Now, in that rematch, Deontay Wilder lost to Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury took the WBC belt. Then within that clause or within that contract of the rematch, there was another stipulation that said you can fight, or they had to fight, a trilogy if Deontay Wilder, being at that time was the WBC champion, if he lost to Tyson Fury, then he had to fight a third fight. Okay? So that being said, that's a contractual agreement. It's a contractual agreement. Now, I'm not saying I'm the smartest man in the world. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not saying that I understand contract law that well. Some of that stuff seems a bit hazy. I barely understand the contract that I got to sign with my business. But if there is a contract, it's binded, not only in a piece of, it's a legal document. So if the legal document is not honored, then there is some serious consequences to be paid. Normally, in this case, it's financial consequences. No one goes to prison in this situation. It's just financial implications. So Tyson Fury and his team either A, decided to ignore that contractual obligation, B, as Tyson Fury's team was sort of intimating that there's a time limit or there's a time span that the contractual information or contractual agreement had to be agreed or enacted or acted upon. If you pass that deadline, then the contract is null and no longer void. If you listen to the Tyson Fury camp and the Eddie Hearns camp and whoever else is on this side of the pond. But Deontay Wilder always maintained, and his team always maintained, that ain't the case. Now, because of all of his excuses about how he lost, we sort of got lost in that smoke about the contract and the agreement. So therefore, while he was maintaining that position, he was saying, oh, Mark Breland's this, Mark Breland's a sucker, he's a punk, he did this, he did that, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, the water, and all this old, the glove, remember the glove, and all that stupid stuff. So therefore, if he had just stuck to the same point that he was actually the most sensible point that made any sense to anybody, would have been what he's been awarded just now. The contract has to be recognized. You have to abide by the contract. Now that's according to what this arbitrator has ruled in favor of what Deontay Wilder was saying all along. I'm just trying to give you some context here. So having said that, if the contract has to be abided by, then therefore there's no argument. There's nothing to even talk about. No August 15th, August 14th, August 7th, whatever. You can't even talk about anything else unless you abide by that contract. Now, that's context. So therefore, we now have clarity that the contract has to be abided by. So therefore, he's been ordered, meaning Tyson Fury, has been ordered to fight Deontay Bronze-Bomber Wilder September 15th. That's supposedly the date that's been thrown out there. You got to fight the man, the trilogy fight by September 15th. Forget everything else you're talking about. You got to fight September 15th. Okay? That's context. That's giving it as it is awarded. Both fighters have to fight September 15th. Now, here's the caveat in all of that. So I've just mentioned that. So here's the aforementioned points I talked about regarding there's three things that could happen. So now, parallel to all of this stuff that's happening, Tyson Fury has contractually agreed upon separately to fight Anthony Joshua for all the marbles, all the belts. And on top of that, there's been floating around, it's been touted around that the financial implications for that proposed fight is about $150 million, okay, between two fighters. So whether each fighter gets $50 million each, $75 million each, or one gets, I think it's a 50-50 contract. So they both walk away with ridiculous stinking amounts of money. They'll be filthy rich, but they're filthy rich anyway, but they're going to be stinking rich after this fight. So according to Bob Arum, and I want to get my piece of paper that I wrote some notes down because I don't want to misquote anybody here. But according to Bob Arum, who first of all said it's a preposterous decision. It's an atrocious decision, this ruling. And he even went further to say Deontay Wilder should just take the step aside money. I'm going to get to that point in a minute. And let these two guys fight. Now, there's a reason why he wants that fight to happen. It's because it's more money in the pot for him. And it's the biggest fight in history, especially in recent times. It's definitely the biggest fight in the UK boxing history. So it'll probably go down as one of the biggest fights in history, period. So apart from that, Bob Arum saw that there was a loophole in the contract after the second fight between Deontay Wilder and Fury. He exploited that loophole, and he even went further by saying the loophole, if it doesn't hold up, if it's not upheld, then Tyson just has to pay a small penalty to then go ahead and fight Anthony Joshua. That hasn't worked. The loophole he thought he saw, that didn't work. So the small implications that they thought they were going to suffer is now going to be a great implication. So here are the three options that could happen, or that probably will happen, in order for Deontay Wilder to be happy, and in order for Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury to be happy. Here are the three options. So the first obvious option is the step aside money. So it's not unusual for fighters to take step aside money so that a mega fight can happen if one fighter is in the way. So for example, let's just say Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, let's just say Tyson Fury was, Deontay Wilder was Tyson Fury's mandatory challenger. And let's just say Tyson Fury didn't want to fight Deontay Wilder because he wanted to take a chance and fighting AJ for a bigger payday and a bigger reward, meaning he has all the belts, he gets all the belts, and he gets more money on the table. It's not unusual to pay the mandatory challenger some step aside money. Here's a few $1 million. Take this money, step aside, let me fight this dude. And if I beat this dude, then you can fight the winner of either of us. That's not unusual. It happened to Lennox Lewis. It happened to numerous fighters I can think of that they taking a step aside money. So that would be the obvious case. Now, what that figure, that fee, that step aside money hasn't even been discussed. I mean, no one that I've read about in the last 24 hours have even mentioned what that figure could be. I've heard someone say to me today, it could be $20 million. I have no idea. So I'm not even going to speculate what that step aside money could be. The second obvious option, or the second option, would be that Tyson Fury vacates the WBC belt. He vacates the belt, put it on the line, and let Deontay Wilder fight whoever else for that vacant belt. That's not unusual either. Riddick Bowe did it, as you know. He famously took the WBC belt, put it in the trash can when he refused to fight his then mandatory challenger, Lennox Lewis. So and then Lennox Lewis fought for the vacant belt. So that's not unusual. The third option, which would be admirable by both men, would be that Wilder fights, Fury fights Wilder as ordered him on September 15th. And just tell AJ, look, we just gotta put these plans on hold. Now, there are implications in all three of those options. The first option is, if Deontay Wilder was to take the step aside money, he could probably name a fee. And if he doesn't get that fee, then he doesn't take the step aside money. The second option would be if Tyson Fury vacates the belt. Now, if he vacates the belt, which is unusual, and go ahead with this fight that's supposedly August the 14th in Saudi Arabia, then what could happen, there could be some implications legally then, because would AJ be happy with that? Because AJ is then going to take that fight under the pretense that, well, I was going to fight you because I wanted to be the undisputed champ and knock your ass out and take all the belts, or you take all the belts, but now that belt's not even on the line anymore. So, okay, besides fighting you for a lot of money, which I already have, but the money's nice, I won't say no to that, but I want the belts as well. So there could be some implications there financially or legally, I don't know. Because of now, the $150+ million that it's going to be thrown around and backed by Prince Khalil of Saudi Arabia means that there are a lot of people, there are a lot of different parties involved. There's Sky involved, there's DAZN involved, there's ESPN and Bob Aarons people involved. So all these people are supposedly getting a little bit of a piece of that 150 or whatever. So if that's not the case, then people obviously have signed off on dates and so on, and TV rights, all that kind of stuff. So there's implications there on the AJ side and on the Fury side. And then the third one is also the we talk about the Fury fighting Wilder, the third fighter. And if that happens, then Wilder gets his just reward. He'll probably sit back thinking right now to himself, Wilder's probably saying, boy, that's the smell. That's the smell of revenge. That's the sweet smell of revenge. And when you get the sweet smell of revenge, it means, especially if Wilder was to fight Fury on September 15th and win, do you know how much of an ego boost that would be for him? Do you know his head would probably be bigger than this room. And this isn't a very big room, by the way. It's just a very small media room we have in my gym. So his head would probably wouldn't be able to fill this room. The point I'm making to you is that the average boxing fan doesn't know about stuff like what I've just read about, the politics that's involved that really ruins the sport. But in some respect, it's necessary, because it's necessary to have this stuff so that some people don't get step aside money. People don't get overlooked. It's happened for decades in boxing. And the sport doesn't get robbed of what is rightful, or the rightful fights, or the fights that should happen. Now, in my view, the AJ Fury fight, in my view, should happen, because they both want it. Both fighters want the fight. They both are champions, so they should fight for all the marbles. And they both should have the right, possibly, to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. The last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world was also a Brit, Lennox Lewis. So the reality is, let these guys have their say in the ring. However, there is a however in this, that Deontay Wilder has been upholding his end of the bargain. So, for example, he gave Tyson Fury the first fight when he came out of rehab and whatever was going on in his head and his mental issues, blah, blah, blah. He granted him the fight when no one else was going to grab him the fight. It was a dangerous fight for Deontay Wilder. He took it. I was actually quite fearful for him taking that fight because I think Tyson Fury is a fantastic boxer for a big guy. And I think he'll box the pants off of Anthony Joshua. But we'll only find out when and if that fight happens. But Anthony Joshua, to me, is a knockout specialist. And I think that if he touches Tyson Fury the right way, he's going to sleep. So I do believe that fight's a 50-50 fight, but I just sort of tip it towards towards Fury purely on his boxing ability and what he did to Deontay Wilder and how he dismantled Deontay Wilder in the rematch. So for me, I feel the fight should go ahead, but I also feel a bit, I feel good. I feel glad for and happy for Deontay Wilder that he stuck to his guns, and his team, Shelley Finkel and all the rest of the guys at Team Wilder have done a fantastic job of highlighting the fallacies and the frailties of the sport of boxing, in the sense that just honor the contract and get it over and done with. If it was that easy to win the fight the second time, to win it the third time and move on. But COVID hit, as we know, so it's not all Tyson Fury's fault. And they saw an opportunity. There's nothing wrong with opportunity. Now, I was just asked about 30 minutes ago by another colleague of mine, what do I think should happen? Or what do I think will happen? And the answer is, I don't really know what's going to happen. What I think will happen is that the first thing is that they're going to offer Deontay Wilder some step-aside money because they want this fight. Both fighters want this fight. And it's a lot of money involved. So I think they'll offer him some money. I think Deontay Wilder has so much pride that he probably won't take the money because he's already rich himself. Now, if it's a lot of money, something stupid like 40 mil, he may just say, all right, 40 mil to sit my ass, I'll take that. And then I'll watch you fools beat the crap out of each other. And then, I'll fight some tune-up fights, wait for you bums to do what you got to do. Then I'll get the belts or I'll fight the winner. Then the third option is Wilder fights Fury September the 15th. Do I think that's going to happen? Nah. I really don't think that's going to happen. That's the one option I don't think is going to happen. And I would be very, very pleasantly surprised if it happens, but I'd be very, very surprised. Why am I pleasantly surprised? Because I do want to see the trilogy. I'm one of the few people, I live here in the UK at the moment, guys, and I'm one of the few people that want to see that trilogy. I enjoyed the first fight. I thoroughly enjoyed the second one, and I'll be delighted on the third one because I believe that great fighters have had trilogies. I mean, the Arturo Gatti War, that was a trilogy. No one complained about that. The Ali Fraser trilogy, no one complained about that. And they were years apart. We've had some trilogies in the history of boxing, and we had some good ones. And we would have had the Lewis Holyfield trilogy, but in fact, I think we did have the Holyfield Lewis trilogy, if I remember correctly. Let me check. I know they fought twice. Then my brain just went dead for a minute. But I know they fought twice. I think it was going to have the trilogy, or it did have the trilogy. I'll check my my boxing lexicon and see if I'm right on that one. But my issue I'm making is that we've had trilogies before and no one's complained. However, because so much has gone on between the second fight and this proposed third fight, and in between that, Fury has negotiated with Deontay Wilder. Fury has negotiated with AJ, that you sort of forgot about Deontay Wilder and you put him on the back burner. So if it doesn't go ahead, I won't be aggrieved. I won't be unhappy. I'll watch that AJ Fury fight with a lot of intent. And I'll be very happy to see what happens with that fight. But let's see what happens as a result of this ruling, because this is really, really, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, it's saucy, it's tasty. And I'm actually glad to see it, because for me, you want to see the truth come to light. If there's some hidden agenda, if there is some bull crap, there's some nonsense, some foolishness, some skullduggery, whatever, you do want that stuff to be weeded out of boxing, and boxing is already a corrupt sport anyway. So you don't want more layers of this nonsense. So tell me what you think. Hit the like and subscribe button. Leave your comments in the link below. And tell me what you think. Should the fight go ahead between AJ Fury? What you think should happen? And tell me, if Fury was to take the Wilder fight, what do you think is going to happen in that? And should Fury even take that Wilder trilogy fight? Is it too dangerous for him to take? They both haven't fought since that second fight. So they're both got a lot of ring rust. I mean, Tyson and Fury is looking in great shape because he's been staying in shape, like as if he's ready for this fight. So, and we know Deontay Wilder doesn't have a fight proposed, so he's definitely going to have some ring rust. So yeah, tell me what you think. Hit the like and subscribe button. We'd like to say thank you to our sponsors. And we're in association with Boxford UK here in the United Kingdom, REKA, REKA Property Management, and of course, we're in association with Next Phase Fitness. And so these guys are supporting us. We're putting out good work here at Boxstyle Forum. Support the channel, support the movement. Tell me what you think. Holla back. Peace.